Right now, we're going to go into my third section where I want to discuss Google Apps, specifically Gmail and Google Apps privacy. And as you know, as you hopefully know, this particular presentation that I'm showing you right now, there's going to be a lot of words in it, and it is available in the download area that Brian mentioned earlier. So if I click on this particular link right here, it will show me Google's privacy policy. And let me click on it to sort of get you familiar with it. This is the privacy policy, which is the first link in the Privacy Center. And the way privacy works in the Google world is there are some basic principles that they implement across their entire suite of products. And in fact, if I go to the top level here, it has these 5 privacy principles surrounding transparency and choice. And their overall policy is based on these principles, and their principles guide the individual privacy policies for the applications that are listed down here. So like a bunch of good programmers, they tried to extract or abstract repetitive information out of all of these individual privacy policies. So if I look on the apps privacy policy in particular, for example, we can see there's only a couple of pieces of information inside the apps privacy policy that aren't already covered in the overarching Google privacy policy. Now, I'm going to, in a moment, give you a few points that I think are particularly salient, having read through all of this and certainly been a Google user for many years. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, so none of these are legal advice or anything along those lines. But if you're going to do a Google Apps installation, especially for a business, it's definitely worth reading. The language is remarkably clear for a document of this kind, and certainly if you're going to trust your precious business data to Google, I definitely recommend that you click on this link and take a look at what they have. There's a specific question. Actually, I'm going to reorder my slides here real quick. There's a few pieces of information about Google Apps in regards to privacy and information security that I want to point out to you. One of them, and I just think that this is incredibly fascinating, is that when Google has information on you, it will combine that information for its own use. So I have no doubt that Google knows that I have a personal Gmail account, and that Google knows that I have a number of Google Apps accounts, and that however it structures its data, Google knows that there's a relationship between those apps accounts and my personal Gmail account. And in fact, Google also knows probably the IP addresses of the computers that I've used to access those accounts, such that it can associate activity at those IP addresses that run through Google with my accounts, even if I'm not logged into my accounts. So this is all a very sort of elaborate way of saying that basically if you do anything online that Google sees, then it has the ability, Google has the prerogative to combine information generated from all those events together in order to, and I'm sure anyone at Google will tell you this, in order to better understand the user experience of the internet and thereby increase the quality of its services. So I just think it's interesting that what Google knows about you is not necessarily confined to specifically what you do when you're logged into a specific account. But another important point that I think you should know specifically about Google Apps, in the last point, I was really talking about analytics that Google does and Google stores on you and your behaviors within Google. Um, this data, to the extent that it's personally identifiable, is not distributed to third parties. Basically, you cannot go to Google and buy a log of the behavior of specific people. However, if you use a gadget, and we saw gadgets very early on in sites, and although we didn't get a chance to get to it in regard to spreadsheets, you can run Google Gadgets from within spreadsheets. A lot of times these gadgets, which are these little pieces of code and functionality that you plug into your site or your spreadsheet or elsewhere, are written not by Google but by third-party developers. And those gadgets have the ability to expose your data to third parties. And this is just a reason why, if I am redesigning my Google site and I have some funky gadget that somebody on the other side of the world wrote that I'd like to include, I would do well to pay attention to the privacy prompts that are given to me when I install that gadget, and with any luck, to trust the purveyor of that gadgets. So, gadgets are an area within Google Apps that you have the ability to expose your data to third parties besides Google. Another thing in regards to security, and this applies primarily to Google Apps standard. You might wonder what happens when you really do delete something from within your Google Apps account. Maybe it's something that you would like to see gone permanently, or maybe you would just like some assurance that it no longer exists in any form on any server. When you delete an email and empty your trash within Gmail, or when you delete a Google Doc, that data is on a Google server, and probably on multiple servers. I mean, almost definitely it's on multiple servers. And when you delete it, what ends up happening is Google internally sort of dereferences that information. It doesn't delete it from its own disks immediately. What it does is it tells its own applications that the space on those disks where that data resides is available to be overwritten with other data. So it may be, for example, that I have an email, I delete it. When I delete it, I don't see it in my account anymore, but it's still on a Google disk. And so somebody else receives an email, and then Google decides to take that email and write it in the space on the disk where my other email that I deleted was. And then at that point, my other email really is gone from the face of the earth. So, I once, and along the same lines, once I delete an email or a document, even though, for a couple of minutes after I've deleted it, it may be still physically in some form on the Google disks, it's gone to me. Like it is truly permanent, and you basically have no chance of seeing it again once you delete something from within Google Apps. So finally, this is especially a point for administrators. Throughout your Google Apps experience, whether you are dealing in your dashboard or whether you are creating calendar items and sharing them, or creating documents and sharing them, you should always be mindful of just what you expose. Anytime you make a decision to share something, take it very seriously. By default, when you create a calendar item, when you create a document or a spreadsheet, it is considered to be private. If you want to loosen it, just take it very seriously, because I think probably for most people, present company excluded, of course, the biggest danger of losing information to somebody malicious or at least if it's not the biggest danger, it's certainly a comparable danger, would be information that I just shared through my own free will, but didn't think through the implications of sharing it fully. So, having read the entire policy and looked specifically towards references towards Google Apps, these are 4 key points that I thought that you should be mindful of. They're certainly not exhaustive of everything that's covered in those documents, but I just think they're particularly pertinent. Now, you may have noticed the contextual ads that you see in your Gmail account. And it sounds really specific when I say it like that, but it's really important because everybody wonders, what is it that Gmail is sharing specifically in regards to these ads? Do people who place the ads know what I'm writing in my emails? And the answer is no. They say we provide to advertisers only aggregated, non-personal information. So, I mean, the general policy across all Google applications is not to share personal information with any third parties. So, in regards to your Gmail account, your advertisers cannot see your personal information. There's a few points in this regards to Google Apps Premier. There's some things that you get that you don't necessarily get inside of Google Apps Standard in regards to privacy and security. One of them is called is access to a single sign-on via LDAP, and LDAP stands for Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. And this is an area that's more advanced than anything we're going to get into in this particular course, but sort of the human way of describing this is to say that this particular feature gives system administrators a single place to control access to all of the different areas of Google Apps that you're plugged into, and to a variety of other areas that may be like on your corporate network or otherwise that plug into this protocol. So for hardcore systems administrators, there are some sign-in enforcement options that Google Apps Premier gives you. Another thing, and this is a lot more simple, is Google Apps Premier gives you the ability to force HTTPS connections. You saw one of the first things I did in my presentation on Gmail, which is one of the first things that you should do when you are using Gmail, either in Google Apps or not, is to go into the settings of my Gmail account and tell Google to only connect via HTTPS. Google Apps Premier gives you the ability to force this protocol across your entire domain. So if I have Google Apps Premier and I have 50 people who are plugged into my Google Apps installation, Google Apps Premier as an administrator gives me the ability to make sure that basically nobody, even if they wanted to, would have the ability to sign on via HTTP, an unencrypted connection between their individual computer and the Google servers. That's just one of the things that Google Apps gives you. In regards to email in particular, there's a service called Postini, which I'll talk about a little bit more next week. But basically, Postini is a service that gives you an enormous amount of really fine-grained controls over emailing and archiving email and spam filtering and other types of filtering. So if you work in the context of an organization that can't ever lose its email, like a government, or if you work inside of an organization like a finance organization that has a huge amount of compliance procedures that need to be enforced upon your email system, Postini would give you the ability to do that. So while Google Apps Premier, the differences in regards to security and privacy aren't so different. It's not terribly different from Google Apps Standard. I mean, basically, Google's not going to sell your information, your personally identifiable information. In Google Apps Standard or Premier, but Google Apps Premier does give you a couple of extra potentially useful tips or potentially useful areas of functionality that you might want to consider for a larger, if any of these appeal to you. And for my last slide, I found this little quote in their website. Not that anyone not that anyone in this call would try to break into Google, but you should know that Google's facilities use high-resolution cameras and video analytics and other systems to detect and track intruders. Activity records and camera footage are kept later. Security controls include thermal imaging, perimeter fences, and biometrics. Once upon a time, I used to watch 24, and this sort of make me think about 24. So if they lose something of yours, breaking in is not the way to fetch it back.
They didn't mention the rabid bunny rabbits.
Oh, the rabbit bunny. No, they didn't. Maybe they leave that as a surprise. So I know that I just covered a whole lot of stuff, and while I'm not a lawyer or a privacy expert, the things I covered are the things that I think are most pertinent for Google Apps users, or at least it would be for me if I were setting a company using Google Apps tomorrow. And to the extent that I can answer questions on these matters, I'd be happy to do it now.
We have a question from the chat room. How confident would you be about managing or storing highly confidential documents at Google?
Yeah, so that's just a kind of a personal question. I mean, and I can give you like my own personal answer. I would definitely, well, it really just depends on what it was that I was storing. I mean, if it was something that, I mean, if the government intelligence agencies began storing all of their email in Palo Alto in a Google facility on Google servers, I would find that very disconcerting because, people would pay a lot of money to break in there, and, that could be problematic. For highly confidential stuff, for me, in the context of a small business, it's hard for, it depends on the business, but I think generally that the risks that Google Apps users typically would face are not going to be very high in regards to storing your information with Google. Like personally, for just any old small business, or even I know that my undergraduate alma mater school uses, which is at New College of Florida, which is in Sarasota, Florida. They use Google Apps. I would not necessarily be concerned about the vast majority of applications in regards to storing stuff with Google. Now, it doesn't mean I wouldn't necessarily want to make local copies of everything. I think but I'm just sort of generally speaking, I'm very comfortable with Google in terms of their privacy. And I don't work for Google, by the way. I don't know if that was ever mentioned. I'm a completely independent person. So.
Well, we have a question from the audience for you in just a second.
From here in the classroom.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me okay?
I can indeed.
Great. Do you know if the privacy settings when you use the HTTPS are HIPAA compliant, the HIPAA
Sure.
health compliant? And do you have any suggestions for people in the health industry that have those regulations that they need to comply with?
Sure. No, that's actually a really excellent question, and that they're you're either qualified to speak to that or not, and I'm certainly not. But if you were a hospital and you had very, very highly sensitive information for medical patients, you would want to ensure complete HIPAA compliance. I'm sure that there are, if there are organizations that need to maintain HIPAA compliance that use Google Apps, I'm sure that there are user groups of those people to who can deal with those types of information. I think that the HTTPS feature in that case is probably the least of your issues. I think HIPAA. I've dealt with people in the nonprofit sphere where I've worked historically who do a lot of work with HIPAA, and I think that they probably would be most concerned with the fact that Google was storing the information rather than that it was, rather than the specific transmission protocols of it. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm sure that a couple of Google searches could get you some discussions about how HIPAA is maintained in that context.